China just did something the entire chip industry insisted couldn't be done. Not this decade, not without the most advanced lithography machines on Earth, and definitely not by a company that's been cut off from buying those machines for years. Huawei, the Chinese tech giant the US government spent years trying to freeze out of the global chip supply chain, just unveiled a completely new way to build processors. And if the numbers they're showing hold up, they're talking about matching chip performance that rivals what a 1.4 nanometer process can deliver without the machine that makes chips that advanced possible in the first place, no EUV lithography, no ASML, none of the tools the rest of the industry depends on. That claim sounds impossible. Honestly, it kind of is. But here's the part that makes it genuinely fascinating. The idea behind it isn't about making transistors smaller at all. It's about doing something almost nobody in the mainstream chip industry has seriously attempted at this scale before. And once you understand what it actually is, you'll see exactly why engineers around the world are paying such close attention right now. For roughly 60 years, the entire technology industry ran on one core idea: make things smaller and everything else gets better. Smaller transistors mean faster chips. Faster chips mean better computers. Better computers mean better everything. This idea had a name, Moore's Law. And it worked so consistently for so long that the whole world just assumed it would keep going indefinitely. Every couple of years, engineers figured out how to shrink transistors further, crammed twice as many onto a chip, and performance jumped while cost dropped over and over. It's genuinely one of the most remarkable sustained streaks in the history of engineering. We went from thousands of transistors on a chip in the 1970s to billions by the 2000s to hundreds of billions today. The chip inside a modern smartphone has more raw processing power than supercomputers that filled entire rooms just a few decades ago. But here's the part that doesn't make it onto marketing slides. Well, that streak has been slowing down. The gains keep getting smaller. Jumps that used to happen every 2 years now stretch to 3 or 4. And the cost of staying on that curve has become almost absurd. Building a new leading-edge chip factory today runs somewhere around $20 billion. A single new generation of transistor design can cost $1 billion in development alone before a single working chip ever gets made. TSMC, the Taiwanese company making chips for Apple, Nvidia, and basically everyone else, is reportedly fighting for something like a 6% area improvement with its next generation. 6%. That used to be a double digits, routinely 50% or more. The easy gains are gone, and the remaining ones keep getting harder to reach. For Huawei specifically, the problem isn't just that progress industry-wide is slowing down. Their problem is far more specific, and it traces directly back to a decision made in Washington. Starting in 2019 and tightening steadily through 2022, the US government placed sweeping restrictions on what technology American and allied companies could sell to Huawei. By 2022, Huawei was essentially cut off from the most advanced chip manufacturing equipment in the world. The single most important piece of that equipment is a machine called an extreme ultraviolet lithography system, built by a Dutch company called ASML, and there's basically nothing else like it anywhere on the planet. This machine fires a laser at tiny droplets of molten tin with enough precision to create a plasma that generates extreme ultraviolet light, then bounces that light through a series of mirrors, so precisely polished that a single stray atom of contamination would ruin them, using it all to print circuit patterns onto silicon so small you can't see them under an ordinary microscope. Each one of these machines costs around $200 million, weighs about as much as 2 commercial airplanes, and is the reason TSMC and Samsung can currently manufacture chips at the 3 and 2 nanometer level. Huawei can't buy one. SMIC, the Chinese chip maker that manufactures Huawei's processors, can't buy one either. So what do you do when you're cut off from the single most important tool in your entire industry? You get creative. SMIC has been doing something genuinely impressive with older technology, using deep ultraviolet lithography machines which rely on a less powerful type of light to print chip patterns. That older equipment was never designed to produce chips as small as what SMIC is now managing to squeeze out of it. To get around that limitation, they use a technique called multi-patterning, where instead of printing one incredibly fine pattern in a single pass, the design gets broken into several simpler steps, each printed separately and then layered together, a bit like building a detailed picture one color at a time instead of all at once. Through sheer engineering persistence, SMIT pushed this multi-patterning approach further than most outside experts thought was realistically possible, reaching something roughly equivalent to a 7 nanometer process. That's genuinely impressive work. But every additional step in that process adds cost, adds complexity, and adds more opportunities for something to go wrong, and there's a hard ceiling on how far this particular approach can keep being pushed. Huawei's engineers clearly understood that, so they started asking a different question entirely. What if transistor size isn't actually the only lever you can pull to make a chip better? Here's the bottleneck that surprised me when I first learned about it. Modern computers aren't mostly limited anymore by how fast their transistors can switch on and off. They're increasingly limited by how long it takes information to physically travel from one part of the chip to another. The thinking part isn't really the bottleneck anymore. The moving information around part is. Huawei has stated that in modern computing systems, more than 80% of total energy consumption can go towards simply moving data around rather than actually performing calculations. 80%. That's not a typo. The chip spends most of its energy playing messenger, not doing math. To understand why, picture what a chip actually looks like on the inside. A very, very small city with hundreds of billions of tiny workers packed into an area smaller than your fingernail. Those workers are the transistors, and they do the actual computing. But they're connected by a network of tiny metal roads, wires really, stretching across more than 20 stacked layers inside the chip. Every time information travels through one of those wires, two things slow it down. First, the wire resists the flow of the electrical signal, similar to how a narrow pipe slows down flowing water. Second, the wire behaves a bit like a tiny battery that has to charge up and then drain every single time a signal passes through it. Engineers call this RC delay, and the longer the wire, the worse both effects get, compounding across billions of individual signal paths running simultaneously. This is actually a big part of why processor clock speeds have barely budged in around 15 years, hovering in roughly the same range your computer or phone was already running at a decade ago. We're not really limited by how fast the transistors themselves can switch anymore. We're limited by how fast signals can physically travel between them. So here's the insight that changes the whole picture. If the core problem is distance, what if you could simply make the distances shorter, not by shrinking the transistors themselves, but by rearranging where they physically sit relative to each other? What if, instead of spreading a chip out flat like a city built across one plane, you stacked parts of it vertically on top of each other, more like a skyscraper? This is the core of what Huawei formally unveiled on May 25th, 2026, during a keynote at the IEE International Symposium on Circuits and Systems in Shanghai. He Tingbo, president of Huawei's semiconductor division, presented what the company is calling the Tau scaling law, along with a specific 3D chip architecture called logic folding. The name Tau comes from the idea of optimizing for time specifically, the time it actually takes signals to travel through a chip, rather than optimizing purely for physical transistor size the way the industry has for 60 years. The concept itself is genuinely easy to picture. Take a piece of paper covered in text. The words at the top left sit far from the words at the bottom right. Now fold that paper in half. Words that used to be centimeters apart now sit right next to each other, separated only by the thickness of the paper. Huawei wants to do essentially that with a chip, taking a processor that would normally be laid out flat, dividing its logic into sections, and folding one half directly on top of the other. Connections that used to require signals to travel across several millimeters of flat silicon now only need to travel a tiny fraction of that distance vertically. Millimeters become micrometers. The journey shrinks by roughly a factor of 1,000, and when the journey shrinks, so does the delay, the wasted energy, and the heat generated by all that constant data movement. Huawei disclosed that over the past 6 years, well before this public announcement, it had already designed and mass-produced 381 separate chips built around principles aligned with this same underlying idea, spanning smartphones and AI computing applications. The company confirmed that its upcoming Kirin chip, scheduled to launch this fall, will be the very first product to formally adopt the logic folding architecture. According to technical documentation Huawei later published, this new Kirin chip reaches a transistor density of 238 million transistors per square millimeter, up from around 155 million in the current flagship Kirin, an increase of roughly 53 to 55%, alongside a reported 41% improvement in power efficiency and a clock speed target of 3.1 GHz, with a longer-term roadmap targeting 5 GHz by 2031. Looking further ahead, Huawei says that by around 2031, this stacked approach could deliver performance comparable to what you'd expect from a 1.4 nanometer chip, entirely without ever needing EUV lithography. Before you get too excited about that 1.4 nanometer figure, there's something important to understand about it, and it's something a lot of the initial headlines around this story got slightly wrong. When chip companies talk about nanometer numbers today, those figures function more as a marketing label than a literal physical measurement. A chip labeled 2 nanometers doesn't mean its transistors are actually 2 nanometers wide. The number is really shorthand for a certain level of performance and density, when what Huawei is actually claiming isn't that they've invented some entirely new transistor that's physically 1.4 nanometers in size. They're claiming that by stacking layers of their existing manufacturing process on top of each other, They can pack enough transistors into a given area to compete with what a chip labeled 1.4 nanometer could theoretically deliver. That's still genuinely impressive, but it's a different flavor of impressive. Stacking two mature manufacturing processes doesn't create a brand new manufacturing process from scratch. It's closer to a system-level trick than a pure transistor-level breakthrough. The real breakthrough, if Huawei can actually deliver on it, lies somewhere else entirely. When Huawei presented this plan, one specific number caught the attention of nearly every semiconductor engineer watching. And it wasn't 1.4 nanometers. It was 1.5 micrometers, the bonding pitch Huawei says it's currently achieving for connecting these stacked chip layers together. Here's why that number matters so much. When you stack two chips directly on top of each other, those layers need to communicate constantly, billions of times every single second, through tiny copper connection points bonded directly from one layer to the other. The smaller those connection points are, and the closer together they're packed, the more of them you can fit into a given space, and the faster information can move between layers. That spacing is called the bonding pitch. Today, the best publicly known bonding pitch sits somewhere below 10 micrometers, roughly the range AMD uses in its 3D V-cache memory stacking technology, with TSMC and Intel operating in a broadly similar range. Huawei is reporting 1.5 micrometers for its current Kirin chip, with a stated longer term target of pushing below 1 micrometer and achieving overlay accuracy within half a micrometer. Getting from roughly 10 micrometers down to 1.5 isn't a small incremental step. It requires new equipment, new materials, new manufacturing processes, and entirely new ways of testing whether each individual bond actually work correctly. It's the kind of leap the wider industry has historically taken the better part of a decade to achieve, moving one careful step at a time. There's a genuinely clever detail buried in how Huawei is pulling this off too. Rather than using die-to-die hybrid bonding, which faces tighter export restrictions from the US, the Netherlands, and Japan, Huawei specifically chose wafer-to-wafer hybrid bonding, a related technique where the necessary equipment, championed by companies like Austria's EV Group, remains comparatively easier to access. China has also been backing domestic equipment makers through its own state investment funds, aiming to supply the specialized tools needed to support this exact bonding process, without depending on any restricted foreign supplier. If enough of these connections can be packed in densely enough, the two stacked chip layers stop behaving like two separate chips entirely and start behaving like one single extremely dense unified processor. The seam between them effectively disappears from a performance standpoint. That's the underlying vision. Then you hit a wall, a genuinely hot one. This is the part of the story where basic physics shows up and complicates the celebration. Memory chips run relatively cool. They mostly just sit there holding data quietly, drawing modest power. Logic chips don't behave that way at all. Logic chips switch billions of times every single second, and every one of those switches generates a small amount of heat. Multiply that across hundreds of billions of transistors running at full speed, and you get a chip that heats up very quickly, sometimes within seconds of hitting peak load. Right now, that heat mostly escapes from the top and bottom of a chip, through a heat spreader and into some kind of cooling system. In a data center, that cooling infrastructure can be enormous. Liquid cooling loops, massive fans, entire buildings essentially designed around moving heat away from processors efficiently. In that kind of environment, a hot chip is manageable, even a genuinely power-hungry one. But Huawei's first real target for this technology isn't a data center chip at all. It's a Kirin processor, a smartphone chip. Your phone has no fans, no liquid cooling, and basically no room for elaborate thermal engineering, just a thin slice of metal and maybe a small graphite sheet to spread heat around, sitting directly in your hand, which means it can't get too hot without becoming physically uncomfortable to hold, or in extreme cases, genuinely unsafe. When you stack one hot logic layer directly on top of another hot logic layer, heat from the bottom layer has nowhere easy to escape to. Trapped underneath the layer, sitting right on top of it, you've essentially built a tiny thermal sandwich, and the filling is on fire. This isn't a minor engineering inconvenience. It's genuinely one of the harder unsolved problems in this entire field right now, and He Tingbo herself didn't try to hide that fact during her presentation, openly acknowledging that existing chip design software isn't yet well suited to this new architecture, and that heat dissipation remains a critical unresolved issue, one that only gets more difficult as the same underlying approach gets scaled up toward larger data center chips down the road. Some research teams elsewhere are exploring materials that conduct heat more efficiently, or microscopic channels built directly into the silicon to carry cooling fluid through the chip layers themselves, but none of those approaches are proven at real mass production scale yet. Whether Huawei has a genuinely credible answer to this heat problem is really the question that determines whether tau scaling turns into a real, durable roadmap or stays a very impressive sounding presentation. If they solve it, the roadmap looks extraordinary. If they don't, the whole stacked logic idea runs into a hard ceiling before it ever reaches its full potential. That's not a criticism of the effort. It's simply the honest shape of where things currently stand. The announcement is real. The engineering challenges are real. And the eventual outcome is genuinely still unknown. Let's zoom out for a second and ask the bigger question. Even if everything works exactly as planned, what does this approach actually change? Moore's law was special specifically because it made chips both better and cheaper at the same time. Generation after generation, more performance for less cost per transistor, and almost magical combinations that's part of why computers ended up in every pocket on Earth. Tau scaling doesn't offer that same deal. Stacking chips is inherently more expensive than not stacking them. It demands more precise manufacturing, more processing steps, and more testing along the way. Bonding at 1.5 micrometers costs meaningfully more than bonding at 10 micrometers ever did. So what you're really trading here is cost for performance, more capability packed into the same physical footprint, but at a genuinely higher price. That's still valuable, especially in a world where traditional scaling has clearly slowed down, since any credible new path toward more performance matters a lot right now. But it's a different flavor of progress than what powered the industry for the past 60 years. It's also worth noting that Huawei isn't remotely alone in thinking along these lines. AMD already stacks memory directly on top of logic in its processors. High bandwidth memory routinely stacks a dozen memory dies on top of one another. Intel and TSMC both maintain their own three-dimensional packaging roadmaps. And research labs around the world are actively working on transistors that stack vertically at the atomic level. When NVIDIA's own CEO was asked directly about Huawei's announcement, he reportedly acknowledged it as a genuine breakthrough for Huawei specifically, while noting it doesn't pose a direct threat to TSMC, since TSMC has already been investing in die stacking, 3D packaging, and hybrid bonding for nearly a decade in its own right. So the industry as a whole was already moving in this general direction. What Huawei is doing is pushing that same broad idea harder and faster than almost anyone else, partly out of sheer necessity, given the restrictions it's operating under, and partly because it clearly has the engineering talent to genuinely attempt it. On the day of the announcement, shares of SMIC and Hua Hong Semiconductor both jumped more than 16% on the Hong Kong exchange, a clear signal of just how seriously investors are taking this. The 1.5 micrometer bonding pitch, if it holds up at real scale, would represent a genuine world first. The heat problem is real, but not necessarily impossible to solve. And the density numbers Huawei has already shown from early production runs aren't fabricated. They're just not quite the same thing as an actual new 1.4 nanometer manufacturing process. They're something else entirely, a category the industry doesn't really have a fully settled name for yet. Maybe the most honest way to put it is this. Huawei found a door in a wall most of the industry had assumed was completely solid. Whether that door actually leads where they think it does is something we'll only find out over the next several years. Huawei's own roadmap targets the full realization of this approach at around 2031, with the underlying architecture also expected to extend into its Ascend AI accelerator chips by 2030. That's still years away, and a great deal can shift in this industry over that kind of time frame. What's genuinely worth watching in the nearer term is whether SMIC can actually manufacture these bonded chips at real production scale with acceptable yields, meaning the percentage of manufactured chips that actually work correctly. In advanced chip manufacturing, getting yield right is frequently harder than getting the underlying design right in the first place. A chip that performs beautifully in a lab but fails on 60% of production units isn't a shippable product. The thermal story is the other thread worth tracking closely, as more concrete details emerge about how Huawei plans to manage heat. Inside a fully stacked Kirin chip running in someone's pocket, that will be the clearest signal yet of whether this is genuinely production-ready engineering or still largely an aspirational roadmap. And then there's the broader question of what this means for the rest of the industry. If this approach genuinely works, if submicrometer bonding becomes real and manufacturable at scale, other major chip makers will want that same capability. TSMC and Intel will almost certainly accelerate their own three-dimensional packaging programs in response. The race won't be over. It'll simply shift into a new arena entirely. That's honestly the both beautiful and maddening thing about semiconductor engineering as a field. Every time someone insists something can't be done, someone else eventually goes and builds a version of it anyway. Not always exactly the way skeptics originally imagined, not always on the timeline first promised, but eventually. Huawei's announcement isn't proof that they've already won this particular race. It's proof that they're genuinely playing it, and in a competition this consequential, being taken seriously as a real player is not nothing at all. Do you think Huawei can actually solve the heat problem and make this genuinely work inside a real smartphone people carry every day? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you want to keep up with how this story develops over the next few years, stick around. because this is exactly the kind of story worth following closely.